So the next step is starting to install the windage tray. Now, one thing you have to note about when you're running ARP studs is now that that stud is actually larger than the factory stud for the windage tray. So you have to compensate for that on these holes here. There's 3 of them that you'll have to actually oval out, and actually they are oval, you have to open them up to make them round again. So the idea here is that it actually sits in there nice and tight and accepts the oversized stud size. So that sits well. Now, we didn't change the stroke on this engine, this factory stroke, so we shouldn't ever have a problem here, but it's always good to check that your connecting rods are not going to hit the windage tray, because you are using aftermarket connecting rods, so things have changed. So you just want to turn it around, holding this down with your fingers, and you'll hear a scrape if it is hitting. And then you can also look down into there. It's really tough to see, I'm sure, but the
what's acceptable clearance?
The rod here will swing up and it will come close to this area here. And you're just trying to make sure that that never actually makes contact. I would say acceptable clearance is anything over 30 thousandths and you're good. So for this pan and this application, this will work well. We don't need to shim it, so we can move on to there. And ARP includes the hardware for this. It's just a lock nut. And we're just going to thread these on. And one thing you want to note is think about where this pickup tube is going to land. See, like here, I started threading that nut on, but we actually have to install the pickup tube on that same point there. So eventually that's going to go there, so we'll hold off on that one right now. But because that tube makes it a little bit more difficult to get to these ones, what I like to do is torque all of these down first and then install the pickup tube with that one on it. And these get torqued to 28 foot-pounds. So we're just going to go not all the way to 28 right now, we're just going to ease into it. Okay. On these LS pickups, there are 2 different styles of pickup on the ends here, this little fitting. And they'll always give you 2 options of O-rings to use, a black one and a green one. Now, in their instructions, they'll show you that the black one is using for a straight fit. So I don't know if you can see this, but if you check that out, you can see that it is not tapered. If it did have that taper, then you would be running this green one. But since it doesn't, we will run the black one here. To ease this process, I like to put a little bit of assembly lube on there just to make it nice and easy. As you'll see in here is where it registers. And I'll put a little bit of assembly lube on there as well. And so it's fitting in. And now I'm watching on this end that goes into the stud, while on this side that fits in there. Now what's crucial here is that actually sits, and I don't know if you saw that, it sort of popped into place. That tells me that the O-ring seated where it's supposed to, and now that this flange is flush to that oil pump. So if it was sticking out like so, that means that it is not quite seated yet. And even if you torqued that bolt down, that O-ring is still not seated until the back side. The whole flange and all around it is actually seated to the oil pump. So what I'll do is I'll put a little dab of blue Loctite on this bolt, stick it in. Now these oil pumps have threaded holes on both sides, and that is all dependent on which pickup tube you're running. So don't be alarmed if you're just using the 1 bolt side, because that flange can only accept 1 bolt. We're going to torque this down to 106 inch-pounds. Doesn't take much. Okay. Next we can go ahead and torque this one down now. And that's 28 foot-pounds again.